our High Holidays series. This is the last one, number 4, and today we're going to speak about Sukkot, the holiday of Sukkot. So the holiday of Sukkot is very involved, many mitzvot. On one hand, it's a Yom Tov, so just like any Yom Tov, you have to cook a lot, you have to clean a lot, you have to wash your clothing and take a haircut, because during the holiday of Sukkot, if it's 9 days, you cannot do laundry, you cannot take haircut. So everything needs to be done before. But on top of that, you also have to build a sukkah, because your meals and preferably even sleeping have to be in a sukkah. And men have to buy the set of lulav and etrog. So there are many things that need to be done before the holiday. And since we have Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur, and between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, it's only 4 days, and there is a Shabbat in between, so it leaves very little time to do all that. So many people start already a month before to build the Sukkah. Some people start from Rosh Hashanah, which is 2 weeks before, and some people wait until right after Yom Kippur to start. So those that wait right after Yom Kippur, they need to pre-plan everything, because there's very little time and you have to fit everything in. And not only you have to build the sukkah, but if possible, you have to decorate it. It has to be beautiful. And that takes a lot of time as well. So we're going to go through each one of these briefly. So the laws of Yamim Tovim we already covered. The first session we learned about laws of Yom Tov. But today I just want to quickly go through the laws of Chol HaMoed, because unlike Rosh Hashanah and Shavuot, Pesach and Sukkot also have Chol HaMoed, which are the middle days that are half Yom Tov, half holiday, and half weekday, which means in some ways it is like a weekday. You can do certain things, and on the other hand, it is a Yom Tov. You still cannot do certain things. So what are they? We say that just like Yom Tov, you can cook and you can do anything that you need for food preparation with some limitations. So too on Chol HaMoed, you can do food preparation and anything that needs for food preparation. On top of that, you can also do actual melacha, like driving, like turning on electricity, turning on fire. All that is permitted. However, you're not allowed to build, you're not supposed to write, ideally you're not supposed to go to work and do business unless it is related to the holiday. For example, you have a store that sells kitchen utensils, or you have a food store, so those stores can be open on Chol HaMoed because you may need to buy those items. But most Jewish stores are closed on Chol HaMoed. Most businesses are closed on Chol HaMoed. It is like a Yom Tov that you can drive, you can go on trips, but otherwise you dress your Yom Tov Shabbat clothing, you spend time with your family, you spend more time for prayer and for learning. And the way we define what is permitted on Chol HaMoed and what is not, besides food, is anything that is going to cause you loss is permitted. So that's called davar ha'aved. Anything that will cause you a loss of principal, not loss of income. If you don't go to work and you don't get paid, that's called loss of income. That you're not supposed to do. However, if you invested money already, and if you don't finish the project, it's going to get lost. Not only that for that particular day you're going to lose your wages, but the whole investment is going to get lost. Then you're allowed to work. So if let's say a builder, and somebody calls you that the building is about to collapse and you have to go, or there's a pipe burst, so then you can go get workers and you can fix it. because if you don't, it's going to cause you damage, going to cause you a loss. Or another example, for example, you're making wine, and the process already begun. And if you don't finish it, the wine is going to spoil. So that's going to be a loss. So in such a case, you can go and work. For example, Kedem factory where they make grape juice operates on Chol HaMoed because that is the time of grape harvest, and if they miss it, they're not going to have grapes after Sukkot to make grape juice. So they have to work. It's going to cause them financial loss, great financial loss, if they don't work on Chol HaMoed. However, things that can wait, even if you don't have more vacation days and you'll have to take unpaid leave from your job, you still have to do it. And so generally, Jewish people don't work on Chol HaMoed unless they're worried that they might get fired, or it's their own business and they're going to lose some of the principal. Otherwise, if you can plan in advance and take those days off, either because using your vacation days, personal days, or unpaid leave, you should do that. Yes.
Does reputation count as principal? For example, if you cater to the non-Jewish community and off so many days, like close so many days, and then the reputation gets, they're closed so many days, I'm not going to go to them anymore. Does that count?
Potentially, yes, depending on your business. If there is a way to still keep open, let's say you hire a non-Jew and let them work, that's better, so that you enjoy your holiday and let someone else work. If you can put a sign, we're going to be closed these days and we'll reopen such days, and they'll understand, so it's better to do that. It should be a real concern, not only your personal worry, but it's a real concern that there is a lot of competition and people are very picky, and if they don't get exactly what they want that time, they will leave you, then that would be considered a loss. But a loss is, again, of existing customers. Just because you will lose potential future customers, future deals, that's not considered a loss. Or you will not be able to expand your business, that's not a loss. Yes?
What if, like, not coming into work until I don't know, it leads you to, you can get potentially fired?
Yes, if you may get potentially fired, then you can go.
And you can't take off so many days, and, like, they're expecting you to come in, whatever. Like.
Yes. But again, for most people, that's not the case. Most people are not in a situation where they're on the brink of being fired. And most businesses are not such business that are going to suffer a loss. It's more our own worry. But if you are at a job where you spoke to the boss and they said, no, we cannot, or you know your particular business that it will suffer loss, then there is this permission to work.
Mandatory thing, or it's just something that you yourself shouldn't do on work on Chol HaMoed?
No, it is a mandatory because it is called moed, it is called a holiday. So the only permission for you to work is to prevent a loss. Not to prevent loss of a gain, but to prevent loss of your own money that's already yours. Uh-huh.
In the long run.
Not in the long run. Right now you're going to lose something.
Besides money.
Either money or merchandise. Yes.
What if it's like, I think like they had asked, like, it's the reputation, like I take off and then I get a doctor's note, and so like I've been doing it, and like, you know, no one said anything, but it's like now I have a new principal in my school, and now it's like, what image am I giving of myself? I can pretend like I got sick. It happens, you know, right? You know, before and after actual holidays, it happens. But it's like, if I'm giving off an image, did she really get sick? What's really going on?
So
should I just say like, Hashem, I'm doing this for you because I know this is the right thing, and just like not worry about what they're thinking, and like kind of just put my trust in Hashem and feel like this is the right
usually,
thing.
if you are otherwise a good worker, that shouldn't be the reason for them
The whole week
to
and
be
then another
unhappy
next
with you.
week, you know?
Right?
So
You
it's
time
you
of year.
you explain to
time
them
of year.
if you already missed some days because whatever of laziness, of not being reliable and not being a good worker, and now on top of that, so that but if you're a good worker, it shouldn't make a difference. But your point is valid that generally it's not a good idea to say that you're sick if you're not sick. On one hand, because it's dishonest, and on the other hand, because whatever you say about yourself, chas v'shalom, happens.
That happened to someone I know. She said, next week I'm going to take a sick day. She ended up in the hospital and had no choice but to take a sick day.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Rabbi Yosef says it's okay if it's, to like cover yourself. If it's needed,
If you live in a country, let's say, where they don't allow you, and if they find out that you kept a religious holiday, they're gonna put you in jail or fire you. So then that's the system they work by. So you have to be dishonest with them because they're not leaving you a choice. Otherwise, they will treat you illegally. They're gonna punish you without a cause. But if the only thing that's gonna happen is that you'll just lose a few days of pay, so then it's better not to use that.
What about those people that can't afford to lose a few days of pay? Like they need the food on their table.
So such people are allowed to work. Yeah, if you have a poor person who cannot put food on his table, he is allowed to go and work to provide for his basic necessities.
If you're already going to go to work, are there ways that you can like minimize the harm? Like if I take notes when I see students, like can I just like say, okay, I'll document it later or something?
Yes, for sure. You can minimize it by, for example, we're not allowed to write, but to write with your left hand is better, or to type is also better than actually writing with your right hand, with whichever hand you write with. So if you can take a picture and then record it later, or you can type it or write it with your left hand, that's better. Also, we're allowed to write if it's to prevent loss. For example, I'm going to a store and I need to know what to buy. If I don't write down a list, shopping list, and I go to the store, then I'm gonna waste my time. I'm gonna forget things, then I'm gonna come home, realize, and I have to go back. Or because of that, I'm not gonna prepare for the holiday properly because I'll forget to buy things. So such a thing I'm allowed to write, even with my right hand. Or similarly, for men who are learning Torah, if they have to write down a halacha or an idea that came to mind, they're allowed to write it down, because if not, they're going to forget, and it's going to be a loss. Yes?
What about for people who go to school or tests? You have a test on that day, writing.
Yes. So again, if you cannot get out of it, it's going to cause you a loss. If you don't take a test, you're going to fail the class. In such a case, you can go and take the test. If it's just a class, and you can, let's say, just record the lecture and then take notes after the holiday, that's better. You can attend, but don't take notes. Just listen and record it. Okay. Now, when you do have to do something on a holiday, for example, we're not allowed to sew, to make a new garment. But let's say the garment ripped, and you need to sew it back. So if you can do a non-professional job, that is permitted, which means you can do temporary stitches that will still look good, but they're not going to last for a long time, and after the holiday, you'll take out the thread and you'll do it already professionally. That's okay. Or for example, you need to sew a button. That's also okay, because that's not considered a professional job. Anything that requires a professional, or you yourself are a professional, you shouldn't do, or do it in a non-professional way. And if you yourself are not professional, so your work is not perfect, then it's okay. For example, if you need to fix something broke in your house, so if you can wait until after the holiday, wait. If not, do it in a temporary way. Unless, if you don't fix it, it's going to cause damage. Like a roof or a pipe, or a toilet, a sink. Those things you can fix because you need them for the holiday, and if you don't, it will, the water will cause damage. Now, let's move to the laws of Sukkah. According to Torah, only men are obligated to sit in the Sukkah, because like every positive commandment that is time-bound, since you only have to sit in the Sukkah that 1 week a year, so therefore it's only for men. However, if the whole family is there, of course women come in as well. And the whole family eats in the Sukkah. And if there is enough space for everyone to sit under kosher schach, everybody sits under kosher schach. Men make the blessing, and women don't make a blessing. However, if you have such a sukkah that half of it, let's say, is under a different porch on top of you, so whatever is under a porch or under a tree is not kosher, so only half of it is kosher, so then men sit in the part of the sukkah that's kosher, and women sit in the other part that is not kosher. What makes a sukkah kosher? For a sukkah to be kosher, it needs a roof that's made from natural material that comes from the ground, grows from the ground, and it's not currently attached to the ground, so it can be branches, it can be bamboo, but it cannot be still attached. So for example, if you have a vine or tree and you just lower it and cover your sukkah with it, that's not good, because it's a living tree still attached to the ground. So that's number one. It has to have a roof, and the roof is made from natural material, and it's not thick, so thick that the rain is not going to go through. And ideally, it should be sparse enough that at night you should be able to see the stars and the moon. If not, it's still kosher, but ideally you should be able to see stars and the moon. And the second thing the sukkah needs is surrounding walls. And the minimum, it should have 3 walls. And the minimum size for a sukkah is, we say it's 7.5 tefachim, which is about, let's say about 2 feet by 2 feet, and the height should be approximately 4 feet. That's the minimum. So if, let's say you're traveling or camping, and you can take with you 3 boards that are 2 feet each and about 4 feet high, you put them next to each other, attach them, and you put on top some branches, that's going to be a good sukkah. For one person will be able to sit on it and eat. But of course, we build much bigger sukkot, and so most of our sukkot are much bigger than the minimum requirement. So we are only concerned that walls should be solid, meaning they should not move in the wind. And therefore, if you use fabric sukkah, you have to make sure the walls are tight so that when it's windy, normal wind, walls don't shake. They're still firm. Or you can do a trick. The trick is that you can create halachic walls, which are to our eye are not really walls, but halachically they're considered walls. So basically what you're creating is a fence, and not even fence with wood or metal, but just a fence of string. You take a rope, it can be even a thread, any thickness, and you spread it, you tie it to one wall, and then to the next wall, and the next wall, next wall, about, let's say, one hand breadth from the ground. And then you go 2 more hand breadths, and you do the same, you stretch a line along the 3 walls. And like this you do until you get to about 4 feet. Once you get to 4 feet, with space between each string of about 2 hands, you've created a kosher wall. So now all your 3 walls are kosher, even though if you remove the fabric, all you'll have are just 4 or 5 strings. That's considered a kosher fence, a kosher wall. And so what's going to happen is that your fabric walls are there just for modesty, that people shouldn't look inside your sukkah, but they're really not walls. They're more like for people not to look. And the real walls are the strings around. So if you cannot get a panel, the wooden panel sukkah, you can still use a fabric, just stretch the string along 3 walls to the height of 4 feet. So the reason why this works is that we consider any space less than 3 hand breadths, which let's say less than 24 centimeters, whatever it is in inches, as filled in. And the reason being that small animals and people cannot go through such space, and therefore it creates a good enough fence, a good enough mechitza, and it's considered a good wall. Yes.
Is that by Ashkenaz or Sephardic? Because I remember hearing that was not enough, the string thing. That there needed to be more of
No, that is
a solid beam.
no, that is enough. That is enough. Yes. And if you have no choice, that's what you use.
What if like you have a backyard deck and there's a fence there 4 feet high? Is that considered technically
Yes,
kosher?
if you have a deck, a porch, that usually the height of the railing or the fence around it is high enough. Yes, all it needs to be is 10 hand breadths, which is about 87 centimeters, which approximately 4 feet, a little bit less. Yes.
So you're doing the string, and it's okay if, like, let's say I have a sukkah with 4 walls, and then one of the walls has a door. I can do the string only around 3 walls.
Only around 3 walls is enough.
Metal bars at the bottom, and the metal bars in the middle, and the top. Those can count as those strings too.
The one on top is too high.
Okay. So
All you need is the bottom 4 feet.
So those 2 bars can also count, like.
Yes, those can also count, and in between you
Just add like 2.
add, right, a few strings. Yes.
And then if it rips during 5, I guess I'll get 2. When
It's a problem. If it rips, then that wall is going to be missing. If the space between them is going to be, if the space, yes, if you make it closer, or use a thicker thread that it shouldn't rip, rope, thin rope.
So also there's a problem if like you have a tree that's like hovering over your sukkah a little bit.
Yes, the sukkah has to be under open
How much
air,
like space does it need for it to be considered overhead?
and there shouldn't be overhang, there shouldn't be awning, there shouldn't be another porch, there shouldn't be a tree. As long as majority of your roof is covered by kosher schach, let's say there is one branch protruding, a small branch, very high, you can't reach it. So that's okay, because it doesn't cover,
If it's not like covering the whole roofing, then it's
not the whole, but It itself, as long as it itself is small, I'm not going into all the sizes, but it itself is thin and there are not many of them, just one or two, that's okay. However, if the branch is thick,
It's like a tree.
yeah, if the branch is thick, then you're not supposed to sit under that. You can sit on the side. Or if there are many branches, then it covers majority of the, and provides shade, enough shade that majority of shade is going to come from that tree, then it's not kosher. So either you have to cut off those branches or you have to tie them and pull them to the side. Otherwise, don't build the sukkah there, build the sukkah on a different, in a different place.
Are you allowed to cover the sukkah, let's say, when you're not going to be in it, with plastic, let's say if it rains?
Yes, many people actually build special awning that can cover the sukkah if it rains. And sometimes when you go to shul for a couple hours, you don't know what's going to be. Maybe it's going to start raining, so you can cover it. And when you come back, you pick it up again. And we're only obligated to eat in the sukkah if it's not raining. Because the sukkah is considered our house for those 7 days. Just like in your house, if the roof starts leaking, you're not going to live in such a house. You're going to go to a different house. So too in the sukkah, when it starts raining hard enough that it's uncomfortable and your food starts to get spoiled, you can go inside the house. And once you go inside the house and you start your meal again in the house, even if rain stops, you don't have to go outside again. The first night of Sukkot is the most important, because then it's obligatory for men to actually eat in a sukkah. Other days of Sukkot, if you eat bread, then you have to go to the sukkah. But if you don't eat bread, then you don't have to go to the sukkah. And therefore, on other days, if let's say sukkah is not available or the weather is not good enough, so you can say, I don't want to bother, I'll just not eat bread.
So it's only if you're eating bread, you have to eat in the sukkah.
Yes, only if you eat if you eat bread, more than 2 ounces of bread, 2 ounces or more, kabeitza, let's say 1.5 ounces. If you wait, you have to eat in a sukkah. Otherwise, you can eat other things and not eat in a sukkah. We're strict that if you're planning to eat more than kabeitza, more than 1.5 ounces of cake, you should also eat it in the sukkah. But if you choose to eat meat and fish and vegetables, you don't need sukkah if you don't have one. But on the first night, it's a Torah commandment to actually go out and eat in a sukkah. And therefore, even if it's hard, even if you have to walk to someone else's sukkah, neighbors or a synagogue, you still have to do it first night. Also, we try, if let's say it's raining, but we're hoping that it's going to stop, we wait a little bit on the first night, hoping that the rain is going to stop. But on other nights, you're ready to eat and it's raining, you don't have to wait at all. Because other nights, it's not obligatory now to go and eat. You can just eat at home, or you can choose not to eat bread. Yes.
Does this hold for women as well?
For women are not obligated to eat in a sukkah,
Okay.
and therefore, if they're not comfortable, if they don't have, if it's too cold, or if it's too far, they can stay home.
Because I know I'm on Main Street a lot, and also like in front of Real Point, they have a sukkah right outside. And if I wanted like a gyro or whatever, with pita, I don't have to go in the sukkah.
Right.
I eat it in the restaurant.
Right, and also if you want to be strict on yourself, or you want to experience the sukkah, which is very beautiful, you can do that, but not at expense of other men. Meaning, if you go in a sukkah and now, because the woman is there, there's less space, and now men will have no place, so that's not proper. Yes.
So what about like other days besides for the first night on Chol Hamoed? You're not obligated to make a bracha and eat and.
You're not obligated if you're not eating bread. Yes, on other days you can choose to design your meal in such a way that it doesn't consist of bread and mezonot, pastries. And then you don't have, for example, if you're traveling, just make sure instead of sandwiches you take fruits, vegetables, and other things with gluten-free diet. Yes.
So my grandmother's yard site falls during Kol Moed, and they usually say the bracha in the sukkah and then go in the restaurant. Is that allowed?
It's not ideal.
There's like no space in the
Yeah. It's by some yeshvos, not everybody washes and eats bread, so they can just serve the dishes that we usually serve that are with rice, potatoes, meat, and those don't require a sukkah. So it's better, whoever wants to go to the sukkah, make a bracha and come back, fine. But you personally just don't eat bread. Again, this is only for men. Women are allowed to. But for men, go there and just don't eat bread. If you have choice not to eat bread, then why put yourself in such a situation? To begin with, even if it's not Sukkot, it's not good to make blessing in one place and then go to eat in a different place. It's better to eat your meal in one place. Okay. If somebody is suffering, they're sick and it's cold outside, if there are mosquitoes and you cannot get rid of them, and it's really bothering you, so then you're not obligated to be in a sukkah. Okay, next, an important point, anything we dedicate for the structure of sukkah, whether it's the boards or the schach or even the decorations, are considered muktzeh for the entire 8-day period. Which means if I attach something to the wall or to the schach as a decoration, I cannot use it, I cannot take it off and use it for the entire 8-day period. And even if the decoration falls down, I cannot say, okay, now that it fell down, let me use it for something else, because now it's dedicated for that mitzvah. And therefore, if a decoration falls on Yom Tov, it's considered muktzeh. I can move it to the side with a broom or my foot, but I cannot pick it up because it's muktzeh.
What if it's like a bracha or like there's a rabbi or something like that?
Yeah, so
Put it on the floor?
you either leave it on the floor or you pick it up in an unusual way and put it in a safe place until Chol Hamoed, and then you can reattach it. Some people hang grapes or apples or etrog, and once they hang it, it becomes muktzeh. And if in the middle of the holiday they want to eat it, they cannot, because now it's dedicated for the sukkah. Okay. What? You can put it back up on Chol Hamoed, yes. And if somebody forgot or didn't have a chance to build a sukkah before Yom Tov, they can build it on Chol Hamoed. Or if a sukkah broke, you can build it on Chol Hamoed, but you cannot build the sukkah on Yom Tov. If branches fell down or the bamboo sticks fell down, you cannot put them back on top. And if that made the sukkah not kosher, so then you cannot sit in that sukkah anymore until Chol Hamoed. If a wall fell down, you cannot put that wall back up on Yom Tov. We make a blessing l'shev b'sukkah. Here there is a difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim and Yemenites. For example, Yemenites, whenever they come into the sukkah, they make a blessing. Ashkenazim, whenever they eat either mezonot or bread, they make a blessing. But Sephardim only make a blessing when we eat bread. So when we eat mezonot, we should go into the sukkah, but we don't say a blessing. When we sleep in the sukkah, we don't make a blessing. Only when we eat bread do we make a blessing.
Every night. So if you're going to eat
Any time.
Every time you have.
Yes, every time. At night, in the morning, lunch, whichever meal it is, you say Hamotzi lecha min haaretz, and then you say Leshe b'sukkah, and you sit down and eat. Or whenever you say Kiddush, it's part of Kiddush. At the end of Kiddush, you say Leshe b'sukkah. But again, only men say it, and only when we eat bread. Once you start a meal in a sukkah, you cannot eat anything out of the sukkah. Regularly, you're allowed to eat vegetables, fruits, meat, anything that's not bread and mezonot. You can eat it outside of the sukkah. However, once you started a meal in a sukkah, now anything you eat is part of the meal. And therefore, if you come out of the sukkah, let's say to the kitchen to serve, you can no longer put things in your mouth. Even though it's not mezonot and not bread, still, since you're in the middle of the meal, it has to be in the sukkah. This is again for men, but even for women, you should eat in one place. You shouldn't change places, because then there are questions about, does your blessing continue in a different domain? Okay, and just briefly, laws of the lulav and etrog set. Again, this is a mitzvah that is only for men. Women are allowed to shake it, but without the blessing for Sephardim. Ashkenazim women do say a blessing for it, but Sephardi women don't. So men have to acquire a branch of date palm that's unopened. We call that lulav, and they have to get myrtle branches, which is called hadas, and they have to get willow, which is called arava branches. So we take one lulav, we take 3 hadassim, myrtle branches, and we take 2 aravot, willow branches, and we take 1 etrog. the 3 green branches, the lulav, hadas, and the arava, we tie together, and etrog is separate. So when men shake it, they take the lulav in their right hand, and then they take the etrog in their left hand. But before they pick up the etrog, they say the bracha, and then they pick it up, and they put it together, and they shake it the 6 directions. This mitzvah of picking up lulav and etrog is, according to Torah, only on the first day. Other 6 days of Sukkot, they're rabbinic. So on the first day, we're more strict with the rules. It has to belong to the person. You cannot borrow it. So if you don't have your own, then the person who is giving it to you has to give it to you as a gift. It has to be more perfect, without blemishes, the etrog and other species. On other days, you can use a borrowed one, and it doesn't have to be as perfect as on the first day. So in years where the first day of Sukkot falls on Shabbat we don't shake lulav and etrog. So on those days, we don't fulfill the mitzvah of lulav etrog deoraita, according to Torah, only rabbinically on other days. So in those years, you can be lenient. This year, the first days of Sukkot are on a weekday, so we have a Torah commandment to shake lulav and etrog. So the first day, again, is the most important. That's deoraita. Yes.
As Ashkenaz person, as a woman, do I need to buy an etrog and lulav?
A woman doesn't have to. Yeah, a woman doesn't have to. If she wants to, she can. Again, Sephardi women that will buy it for themselves will not make a blessing. They're not obligated. They can borrow, but if they decide to, they're allowed to. And Ashkenazi women that decide to buy it for themselves, they can make a blessing. But again, if it's hard for you, you don't have to.
Just confirming, we don't shake at night. The men.
Yes, men shake only from dawn, or let's say sunrise, until sunset. Yes, if you missed, you still have 13 and a half minutes to shake it after sunset.
Just to recap, when you said about making a bracha in the sukkah for bread, it applies to both men and women?
The blessing on sitting in a sukkah is only for men.
But like the other days, if you want to like eat bread or something.
If you, yes,
it applies to
only men are obligated to eat in a sukkah. Women don't have to. If women choose to, that's good. But if it's not available, if it's hard for them, they don't have to eat in a sukkah. And they don't make a blessing because of that.
Okay, so that means they can't eat bread because they have to do it in the sukkah.
Men have to, yes, men have to eat in a sukkah if they want to eat bread or pastry.
So that doesn't apply to
Women
them.
can eat anything they want, anywhere, yes. And after Sukkot come the 2 days of Shmini Atzeret, that's the 8th day, and Simchat Torah. In Israel, Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah are on the same day, but outside of Israel, we split them in 2 days. So the first day is Shmini Atzeret. We sit in the Sukkah, but we don't make a blessing, because technically it's not Sukkot anymore. But since outside of Israel, we always keep an extra day. So for us, the 7th day of Sukkot, we also keep it on the 8th day. But because the 8th day is a new holiday called Shmini Atzeret, we cannot make a blessing on Sukkah anymore. And we don't shake lulav anymore. So again, on Shmini Atzeret, we sit in the Sukkah without a blessing. And then on Simchat Torah, we don't sit in the Sukkah at all. Shmini Atzeret is the day when we switch from, in a second blessing, instead of saying Morida Tal, we start saying Mashiva Ruach or Morida Geshem in the Musaf prayer of Shmini Atzeret. But the blessing of actually asking for rain in the blessing of the years, we do on December 4th or 5th, depending on the year. So we switch from Morida Tal to Mashiva Ruach Morida Geshem on Shmini Atzeret, but we still continue saying Barachenu in Shmoneh Esrei until December 4th or 5th. And then we switch to Barech Aleinu. And there is a custom for men to stay up the night of Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana Rabbah is the 7th day of Sukkot or the last day of Chol HaMoed. Men stay up at night, they learn, and then in the morning they have a long prayer service, like 3-hour prayer service. They say parts of Yom Kippur service without mentioning sins, and they go around the bima 7 times with a lulav and etrog. And on the day of Simchat Torah, the last day, we finish the reading of the Torah, and we start it again. And we bring our children to the synagogue, and every man and child gets an aliyah. Even little children, if they can make their own blessing, they get their own personal aliyah. If they can read, they read themselves. If not, somebody reads for them. And if they're so small that they cannot read, we put them all together under one talit, and somebody makes a blessing for them, and we read the Torah for them. So even if you normally don't come to synagogue on Simchat Torah, women come to synagogue even with little children for that bracha. With this, we finish our discussion of the laws of Sukkot. If you have any questions on this topic or any other topic, you can ask now. Yes.
I'm sorry I came late, but did we talk about if it rains on Sukkot, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, basically you go home.
You can go inside?
Yes, if it rains, you go inside. Yes.
Do you know, like, they put something over the scarf? Is that allowed?
It's allowed, but it's no longer sukkah.
So you don't have to,
So you can either stay in a sukkah. For example, let's say you set a table, and you don't want to bother to move it inside. So if you have a cover, you just cover it, and you can stay inside. It's
Even during the first 2 days, like Moed,
Yes, if it's raining so hard that you cannot stay in the sukkah,
But you're allowed to cover it?
you can cover it, but it's not considered sukkah
Yeah,
anymore.
I'm saying you're allowed
So,
to cover it, isn't it like an umbrella? 'Cause aren't you not allowed to-
no, as long as it's open one tefach, let's say your awning is already opened a little bit, tiny bit, one tefach, then you can continue. So just don't close it on Sukkot, don't close it all the way. But again, it's not considered a mitzvah, so you cannot make a blessing.
Either you're going inside or you just stay outside.
Right, right.
Don't close it all the way.
Meaning like your cover, the whatever you're gonna use to cover it, don't completely close it
And then
off.
it's gonna still be kosher? The sukkah's
It's not going to be kosher
still-
sukkah,
Oh, okay.
but just you will not need to move.
Okay, fine.
You
So
can stay there.
you say the mitzvah of the shape of sukkah.
And if your sukkah is covered with plastic, you don't make a blessing.
Well, I have a question. On our over our sukkah, there's like a tree that covers like some of. Like,
Yeah, so whatever part the tree covers is not kosher.
So then, like my dad sits on the other side.
He has to sit on the other side, and you have to make sure that that side that he sits on still has 3 walls on that side and enough schach covering him. Yes.
What did we say for Havdalah? Yeah, did we say Havdalah is in the sukkah? Or
For Havdalah
what do we need?
after Yom Tov,
Yeah.
yeah, whenever we make Havdalah after Yom Tov, since on Yom Tov we're allowed to use fire, we don't light a candle. And since on Yom Tov our extra soul doesn't depart, so we don't say Besamim. So on Yom Tov we'll just say Gefen and the blessing of Havdalah. Yes.
One question, so like you said, if it rains, should we make the bracha in the sukkah and then go upstairs and eat, or you just?
If it rains already, then you cannot make a bracha in the sukkah. If you know it's about to rain, but didn't start yet, so you can quickly go, make a blessing, eat the bread, and at least you fulfill the mitzvah. And now if it starts raining, you can eat the rest of your meal inside.
Yeah, 'cause I'm right.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to go like shopping for clothing during Kol Hamoed?
On Chol HaMoed, you shouldn't do things that you don't need for Chol HaMoed. And if you need a particular garment, you can buy it. In fact, it says since we're not allowed to do laundry on Chol HaMoed, except for little children and for towels, or if you have guests, so you can wash the bedding to prepare for the next set of guests. But if your regular clothing got dirty, so instead of washing it, it's preferable to buy it. But only if you actually need it for Chol HaMoed. You shouldn't do shopping for after Yom Tov. Okay. So you should all have a good Yom Kippur, an easy fast, and we should all be sealed in the book of life. And Be'ezat Hashem, we should have happy holidays, Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah. Shavuot Tov.